This is The Bottom Line. My name is Scott Schweitzer. I'm your host. Today I have with me Brian Friend, and we just got back from the West Coast Classic after a nice long weekend in Vegas. And what we wanted to do is, after watching this weekend's event, this was history relived. So every one of the events paid homage to a previous event that occurred in either a regional or a games event. However, some of those had minor tweaks, so we don't want to compare apples to oranges. We want to compare apples to apples. So, Brian, what events were apples to apples comparisons?
Well, the events that were exactly the same there weren't that many. There were only the Triple G Chipper, and the regional finale 2017 workout. And then the legless was exactly the same, but there wasn't anyone in the field who'd actually done that workout. So those are the only three that were identical.
The Snatch Ladder was pretty similar, other than the weight just went up.
Yeah, so there are two other workouts that I think we definitely can and should talk about, which are the Snatch Ladder, which was the first event on the weekend, and then the regional finale 2015, which was a buy-in of ring muscle-ups into a clean ladder. So those are not exactly the same, but I still think the comparisons are pretty interesting.
Okay. So let's start on the men's side. So let's go with event one, the Snatch Ladder. It was a little bit heavier this time. Who in the field did it both times?
Okay, so we had 7 guys who did the workout back in 2016 and also this year. Those were Noah Olson, Cole Sager, Sean Sweeney, Will Morad, Alex Smith, Jake Berman, and Dylan Martin.
And how did those comparisons go?
Right, so keep in mind that they were snatching heavier bars throughout the entire duration of the workout, but I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these guys improved their scores from when they did it 5 years ago, despite the weights being heavier. One of them had a slightly slower time, and one of their scores was actually identical, which was Dylan Martin, who had a cap +2 in both workouts, which actually means that he's gotten stronger still. So in that case, 5 guys improved. 1 guy was slightly worse. That was Will Morad, and he was only 3 seconds worse than his time from 5 years ago, so almost the same. So, no one really everyone obviously got stronger because the bars were heavier and they were still moving just as faster.
Did anybody do significantly better?
So I think Noah Olson might have had the biggest improvement in time. He was at 8:52 back then, which was 64th worldwide, and this time he was 7:14, which is a minute and 45 seconds or so faster with the heavier weight. I think the other really notable one is Jake Berman, who got cap +5 in 2016. He was able to do it this time in 2019, and he actually missed the last bar once or twice before finally hitting it. So he could have even been a full minute faster than that, I think.
Wow. Those are some really big improvements. So let's look at the ladies' side. I know that I'm actually looking at Haley Morello for a feature on on Morning Chalk Up's Instagram. She made a vast improvement. Were there others that did this 2 times?
Yeah, there were a total of 12 women actually that did this workout back in 2016. This was Reagan Huckabee, Christine Best, Chloe Wilson, Meg Reardon, Lauren Fisher, Carrie Pierce, Allison Scudds, Jordan Adcock, Caroline Dardini, Haley Murillo, Chelsea Hughes, and Holly Henderson. And you mentioned Haley Murillo. So she got cap +10 5 years ago. This year with the heavier weight, she finished in 8:07. So that's fairly substantial. The other and there were a lot of similar things here. Other women that got capped in that workout were Reagan Huckabee, Christine Best, Chloe Wilson, Meg Reardon, Allison Scudds, Jordan Adcock, and Holly Henderson. And all of those girls, except for Holly Henderson, finished this workout this time. So obviously, when it comes to women and snatching, there's been massive gains. And then as far as the girls that were actually able to finish the workout both times, Carrie Pierce did it in 8:28 in 2016. And with the heavier bars this year, she finished it in 5:52.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I know she's been working on strength a lot going into this season, and it has definitely showed.
Yeah, and look, in 2016, she was still very fit relative to the field. So this is not just a testament to her improving in that regard, but just the overall strength of female athletes in CrossFit.
So when we go to the next event, which one is the next one that was similar enough?
So we'll skip by legless. We'll skip by the ruck run. Even though the ruck run was the same distances, the times are not comparable at all because of the way that the loads were distributed and probably the temperature. And I don't think it's a good comparison. So we'll go to the Triple G chipper next. And for the Triple G chipper, there were 3 men, Noah Olson, Cole Sager, and Alex Smith, and 4 women, Reagan Huckabee, Bethany Shadburn, Lauren Fisher, and Carrie Pierce, who had done that workout both times.
Did anybody do worse?
No one did worse. But the women here, I think it's hard to say what's a bigger improvement. Someone who didn't finish the workout last time, and Lauren Fisher, who was able to finish in 14:19. But I think we got to recognize Bethany Shadburn here. Her time was 13:05 last time in 2017 at the games, and this time her time was 10:28, which was 17 seconds faster than Cara Saunders' world record-setting time 4 years ago. She was the only girl to beat Cara's time at the West Coast Classic. You and I talked to her about that at some point, but so very, very impressive by Bethany Shadburn on that workout, not just relative to herself, but relative to any time we've seen a workout done before.
You can see her working out with Carrie, rubbing off on her a little bit and strengthening up some of her weaknesses from the past.
Yeah, for sure. And so if we can shift to the guys, and again, all 3 of the guys improved on their scores. And Matt Fraser had the fastest time in 2017. His time was 10:46 back then, and both Noah and Cole beat that this time. Noah's time was 10:18, whereas previously he'd done it in 11:57. And Cole's time at West Coast Classic was 10:33, which was 2 minutes and 13 seconds faster than his 12:46 from 2017.
I think what's really cool is these are all veterans too. They've been around the sport a long time, and to get PRs that significant is pretty amazing.
Yes, it's incredibly significant. And these are, this is a movement that's got a ton of reps to it. So you could, the improvement could be anywhere across the board. But I think that especially when you look at that dumbbell at the end, just the way the athletes are able to move it now compared to what they could do 4 years ago is vastly different, especially in the case of someone like Noah or like Bethany Shadburn. Just the relative ease with which they could put that dumbbell overhead has come a long way.
All right, well, let's move to the next event.
The next one is the regional finale 2017. And so this workout was started on the Echo bike, which was back then the assault bike. So I guess it is a little different. Generally speaking, I think that the Echo bike's a little stingier with calories. Then they had 20 burpee box jump overs, and finally 10 D-ball cleans, which were back then sandbag cleans. So there are small nuances here that were different, but we can still look at the data and get a very clear picture of what's happened. And
this is an all-out sprint, so you wouldn't expect like large changes on this one.
Exactly. So it's a much smaller time domain. So, the gaps in time will be smaller, but percentage-wise could still potentially yield something for us to learn. There were 13 women that did this workout both times and 11 men. So it was by far the most well represented in terms of a repeat workout. And of those athletes, all 13 girls improved on their time. 11 of the men improved on their time. 9 of the 11 men improved on their time. Alex Smith had exactly the same time, and Noah Olson was 1 second slower. So,
oh my goodness,
it was pretty much a clean sweep of improvement with a couple guys that were just very close to their time from a few years back.
And I think like watching how many people did the D-ball cleans unbroken. And if I can remember back then, that wasn't the case the last time this event was held. Yeah, and you're right. That Echo bike is stingy, and still people besting their times. That's amazing.
Yeah, and I can't remember the exact amount of time it took, but some of these guys were getting off that bike in like 30 seconds or less, which is, I can't imagine trying to jump over a box.
No, not at all. So we finish up with the last event that's similar, and that is what finished off the West Coast Classic. And that was the muscle up clean ladder.
Yeah, so muscle up clean ladder. And again, similarly to the snatches, the weights were heavier here, with the women ending at 200 pounds and the men ending at 295, which was quite a bit more than they ended at last time. We had five guys who did this workout, and we had also 5 women who did this workout last time. Now, the women was kind of interesting because 3 of them improved and 2 of them did not. But the same two women who didn't improve here were the same two women who did not improve on the snatch ladder. And I think that this is more of a testament to just them as an athlete. It's Caroline Dardini and Chelsea Hughes, and they're just athletes who have been around for a while. And maybe I don't know how competitive they necessarily are anymore. Like, they're obviously still very fit and good, but I don't know that they're necessarily training to be elite games level, the best shape of their life. They may have other things going on in their life.
Yeah, I know we talked to Chelsea afterwards, and she was not expecting to be at West Coast Classic. She was focusing on the Masters division, which she's going to compete at the games. This was just a way for her to tune up for the Masters, is what she told us.
And I think it's notable that they both did improve on the regional finale 2017. So their fitness is good and improving. Sometimes the strength, it can be something that goes, or you're just not focused on it or whatever. So I don't think that's necessary. That more of an exception, I think, than the rule here. But the other three girls, which was Reagan Huckabee, Lauren Fisher, and Carrie Pierce, they all improved on this workout. Again, it was a really fast workout. So you're talking about small amounts of improvement, but they did improve. But you compare it to the men, and the 5 men who did the workout all had slower times this time than the first time they did it. Now, granted that the barbell was heavier, but what I really think is the times were just so fast on this workout. Like the 15 muscle-ups are negligible for the guys, and they were also back then. I think the girls might have made up time on the muscle-ups more so than the cleans here, and that's why we saw some of the improvements. Like, doing 15 unbroken ring muscle-ups as a buy-in to workout for women now is much more realistic than back then. And even if you needed to take 1 break here, you probably needed 2, maybe 3 breaks a few years ago on this workout. 6 years is a long time. But for the guys who can just crank out 15 ring muscle-ups and have been able to do that for a while, I think that what this basically shows is that the ladders, because the times were similar. So Noel Olson was only 0.7 of a second slower. Cole Sager, he had a totally different mindset. That year, he needed to win that workout and have a bunch of other things happen just to make the games. This time, he'd already locked up first place, basically. He just needed to finish the workout. So the level of intensity didn't need to be there for him. And then the other guys, Sean Sweeney was within 2 seconds of his old score. Will Morad was with 10 seconds behind his old score. Alex Smith was 18 seconds behind. So maybe the weight's a little heavier, and that's affecting it. But overall, I think that the reason you saw some of the girls improve and the guys didn't was the muscle-ups, not because they were struggling with the barbell.
Yeah, I think probably for another episode, we need to examine the difference between the men and the women's weights now, and how are they increasing proportionately over time, because it does seem like the improvement's happening way more on the women's side than it is on the men's.
Yeah, I've tried to study that before. It's actually a fairly in-depth analysis. I'm not prepared to get for that show.
Yeah, in the future, maybe after the games when we have a lot of time. But I think that's a really cool that it shows how much fitter everybody's getting. I thought it was a really cool concept at West Coast to do this type of an event. I know I have vivid memories of these events back in whenever they occurred. I know like push-pull is a very legendary event, things like that. So it was really fun to see people do it again.
Yeah, definitely. Very cool. And I think it's something that West Coast is like planning to continue to do in the future as well.
Yeah. Well, with that, this has been The Bottom Line. Thank you for Brian Friend and me, your host, and we'll see you next time.